Hey guys, it is Mike from Baltimore Rides here, wrapping up Monday night, the 19th of March. Hard to believe that we're a quarter of the way through the year already. I was looking at the calendar earlier for something and I'm like, geez, man, March is over already. Wow. But, it's just been a good couple weeks. I feel like spring is in the air, guys. If you're not noticing it, then you're not noticing it, but it's definitely spring is in the air. Our customers are moving around. Activity is going on. There's stuff going on in the cities. There's stuff going on in the suburbs. Just, it's noticeable. Perfect example. It's a Monday night, another $200 night in a row. Good night tonight. I started late, just because of stuff. But, just a strong night. And about an even split, too. I think it was like 105 and 90 something between the two of them. So Uber was running pretty strong tonight. Lyft was running pretty good tonight. I will say that I got an early jolt of money. I got a ride right out of my community in Westminster, and it took me all the way to Essex. So, talk about a great fare. I don't typically get a lot of long trips anymore because I'm not really working the airport runs. So most of the rides I do are going to be smaller, 10, 12, or even single digit rides. It's very rare when I'll get one even over $20 for that matter, honestly. So a 50-something ride right out of the get-go, 40 plus miles was, definitely a nice jolt to start my day off on the right track. And it did. Would I have still made the $200 if I hadn't gotten that ride? Yeah, probably. But I would have had to dig a little bit longer. So, and a little bit harder for that matter. So, I'll take it. I'll take the easy ones as well as the hard ones, and that's how you get there. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than skilled. That's an old expression I've heard many a time. So, all in all, guys, it was another good night. Not a lot of surge tonight. In either case, between the Lyft or the Uber, I did not see a lot of surge tonight, and I don't know what that's from. I don't know if that was just indicative of there not really being a lot going on. Spring break is on right now, so a lot of the college kids are out of class. Hopkins, Towson, and I think Loyola are all on spring break right now at the same time. So a lot of the surge that I would normally see north of, Pratt Street, between that kind of College Row, right along Greenmount, York Road, where you've got a slew of colleges in that vicinity, you're not really getting right now because they all went on spring break as of this past weekend. And I think they're gone for like 2 weeks. So, 10 days, 2 weeks, whatever. So that might be part of the reason why it's been a little bit quieter, but I was still able to make a consistent living today. And that's really the goal, guys, is to do $200 days. Now, I don't know how many power hour trips or power peak hour trips I did today. I want to say it was like 7. But Mondays are a shorter day. It's only 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Mondays. The rest of the week, it's 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So, I don't know why Lyft scaled it back to only 2 hours on a Monday, but, that's okay. The week's just getting started, so that's okay. Peak hours and the power driver bonus for Lyft is still very, very tricky. I've hit it a couple times at varying levels, but it is much trickier to hit. And I'll be honest, I don't think I would have had a $200 night had I just driven Lyft tonight. I really do think that it's a balance between the two that's making me successful. Uber's bonuses, the weekend one was not a lot. It was like $50 for 10 rides or something goofy, 18 rides I think it was. So, given that I had stuff going on this weekend on Saturday, it was not worth chasing that in DC. And my new thought process is really simple. You know, if I can do $200 plus a night every night, I don't need to drive to DC. I really don't. You know, it doesn't mean I don't want to get bonus money. I love bonus money. Anything that's, you know, anytime I can get free money for doing what I'm already doing, sign me up. But Uber's bonus money is all really indicative of a DC drive. And I end up spending more in gas commuting down to DC and back. You know, it's 60 miles each way. So it's 120 miles on my car that is not built around revenue. So, you know, to do $200 in Baltimore to do $200 in DC and add an additional 120 miles on my car that night, which equates to about, you know, I don't know, whatever it is. I average, you know, 28, 30 miles a gallon on the highway. Let's call it 25 miles a gallon. You know, it's you know, it's 5 gallons. What is it? 5 gallons of gas at $3 a gallon, $2.50 a gallon. It's $10. So right then and there, it's costing me $10, $12 just to get to DC in one day. It's the difference between a $25 top off at the start of my day and a $30 top off at the start of my day. So, you know, dollars and cents, guys, it all adds up. If you're going to do the same $200, why would you pay $10 extra in gas to do it? Now, if Baltimore slows down, then I might reconsider. But right now, Baltimore's been good. And I attribute that to a bunch of different stuff. So, you know, I was talking to somebody about this tonight. I think I'm getting more efficient. Now, what that means is I'm driving in smarter areas. I'm not wasting gas. I know when to reposition and when not to. Last summer, you know, almost this time last year, because I started in May, so, you know, let's call it roughly a year ago, I was wasting a lot of time repositioning. I was wasting a lot of time chasing my tail. And that added up to time and also gas money. So now, you know, I get a ride, I drop that person off. I generally drive about 100 feet away, find some place to park where it doesn't look like I'm just sitting in front of their house, and I wait for a ride request. And the only time I reposition is if I'm really in the middle of nowhere. You know, like I got a ride to Columbia the other day and I waited and nothing happened for a good 10 minutes. So I started to reposition back towards Baltimore. I got a ride to Sparrows Point, which is like way out in the middle of nowhere by Essex and Dundalk. And I would get little rides, but they were all like $3, $3, $3, and there was surge in the city. So I took the initiative to reposition. But, you know, if I'm working the Beltway, inner loop, outer loop of the Beltway, and I'm getting steady rides, especially if I'm working Baltimore City, North Baltimore, and maybe even West Baltimore, there's always surge in those areas. There's always a little bit of activity where I can get some price bumps. But then on top of that, there's back-to-back rides. Almost always back-to-back rides. So, you know, I'll take 4 or 5 $5 rides in a row in an hour. It's $25 an hour. It's a great average. It's what I've been averaging lately, roughly. $20 to $25 an hour has been my average. Now, you know, I take out the time that I'm on break. You know, I've been trying to take breaks. I've been trying to eat. So, you know, when you look at the math, like tonight was a $200 night, roughly drove about 9 hours, give or take. When you subtract out the time I took breaks, the time I sat and had a meal, talked on the phone, whatever, I really had about 9 hours of drive time for $200. So it's not quite $25. It's like 21 and change, whatever, 22. The math is weird. It's a good average for a Monday night. It's a really good average, you know. Now, and you hear in the media, especially right now, because there was a couple bogus articles done, and I say bogus not because they're fake, but bogus because the math is flawed. You know, but a couple bogus articles done recently about hourly wage for ride sharing. And even, Ryan over at Gridwise did an article just recently about his own interpretation of ride sharing based on the information he'd been able to gather from several sources. And there's a wide range, guys. Wide range of what average hourly wages are. And there's also a wide range of mathematical formulas to get there. Some people equate it to just top line gross revenue, how much you earn in fares divided by hours. Some people back out cost of doing business, expenses, etc., which you've got to math that out. If you're really going to divide your monthly to daily expenses down to hourly expenses, you can do it if you want. If you want to sit and do that math, you can. If you calculated, I do $25 worth of gas a day, I do, roughly, let's call it $8 worth of food a day on the road, call it $32 divided by X number of hours, blah, blah, blah. You can game it out as much as you want, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of different ways to look at that math equation. To me, if I'm expensing out costs of doing business, knowing that there's going to be a return on investment come tax season, I'm going to get a lot of that money back. Then, and how do I want to word this? Then that's a tricky equation. And here's why I say that. When I was an employee working for a company, I was a manager in retail for many, many years, in management in retail, assistant manager, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when I was working for these big box retail companies, and I was an hourly wage employee, salaried or hourly wage, whatever, given my position, you try and dial your tax withholdings one of two ways. Some people love to get a gigantic tax return come March. Some people they want that fat check. They want to pay a bunch of taxes all year round and then get a nice fat return check from Uncle Sam, which really is not free money. It's money you overspent or overpaid in taxes during the year, and they're just giving it back to you. Or the other equation is to adjust your withholdings and find that sweet spot number of, whatever it is, 27 kids, 13 kids, whatever the stupid number is, because it's just a number, that scales your tax withholding to just the right amount so that you don't get a return, but you also don't owe Uncle Sam anything. And, you think about that. It doesn't matter how many kids or how many dependents you're declaring when you tell your employer you've got a number of dependents. That's not like a thing. All you're doing is you're putting a number into a formula that the computer at their payroll department is looking at to calculate how much to take out based on some assumed estimations. Somebody with this many kids has this much of a deduction, blah, blah, blah. Somebody with this many kids has this much. And so they're taking out just the right amount of taxes to compensate for that many dependents. Now, invariably, if you put the right amount of dependents that you normally have, I got 2, I'm going to get a gigantic tax return back because they don't take out enough. Or they actually take out too much. They take out too much at 2, and then I get a nice big return back. If I tell Uncle Sam I've got 10 kids, which I really don't, I really have 2, then they don't take out as much. I don't get as much back, or maybe nothing back. But I only gave Uncle Sam what I was supposed to give them during the year. Now, this is a really, really big conversation that I'm not going to go any more into. But when you're an employee, you can play that game. You can game the system with your payroll department and try and find the sweet spot where you don't owe Uncle Sam anything come tax time, but you don't get anything back. You're like right at the pin, as close to a hole-in-one as possible. And for a lot of people, that's awesome, because basically what you're not doing is giving Uncle Sam a bunch of your money and then having them sit on it all year round just to give it back to you in February or March. As a self-employed contractor, which is what we are in ride sharing, we don't have that luxury. We don't have that luxury at all. We don't really even pay taxes. Now, technically you can pay quarterly taxes, and you're supposed to. As a self-employed business person, you're supposed to pay quarterly taxes. But if you don't owe, there's nothing to pay. And if you're using QuickBooks Self-Employed or some other app that's like that, then you'll see what your quarterly estimated taxes are. Right now, mine says $72. Am I really going to write Uncle Sam a check for $72? No. What is the point of that? But technically, you're supposed to. And so I know that I'm not really going to owe Uncle Sam $72. I know I'm going to get money back because that doesn't take into account all my deductions, all my mileage, all the things I've spent. It takes into account some of that stuff on QuickBooks, but it doesn't take into account I've got 2 kids, so I'm going to get the standard deduction, plus I'm going to get the child deduction, plus based on my income minus all my expenses and business deductions, I'm going to fall within a certain income bracket and my tax rate is going to be lower, blah, 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 blah. So you're going to get money back no matter what. So I don't feel like these hourly wage estimates are right. I feel like if you want to calculate it as a business, and what you think about when you look at businesses is gross revenue, meaning top line sales. If I'm selling sneakers at a sneaker store, a Nike store, for example, and the shareholders or my CEO wants to know what I did in the month of February, I'm going to report to him a couple different numbers. I'm going to report out top line sales, how many dollars we brought into the register from shoe sales, actual money that came into the register. Then I'm going to report out expenses for the month of February. Electric bill, rent, payroll, blah, 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 blah. And then the bottom line number, when you basically subtract out top line sales minus what your cost of doing business was, you're going to get your final number, your revenue, meaning profit at the end of the day. And I can go way more deeply into all these numbers, but hourly wage is typically a trickier number to equate. You can't really equate it to that final number, the after cost of doing business, because we don't really know what our final number is until we get to the final number. I don't know if tomorrow I'm going to put 2 new tires on the car. And if I have to do that, obviously that's an expense that day, but it's really an annual expense. It's not really a daily expense. To me, daily expenses are I put gas in the car every day. Technically, I pay insurance every day. It's a 30-day premium, so blah, blah, blah. I might buy a cup of coffee every day, whatever. I might get food if I'm not bringing food. So there's those expenses that I know I'm going to incur every day. But there's also going to be unforeseen expenses like car repairs, maintenance. You buy a camera for your dash. You replenish your M tag or Easy Tag, Easy Pass, whatever the hell they call it, once a month. All these kind of unforeseens are still business expenses, but they're hard to equate to a daily number. So hourly wage is a tricky one. I would much rather that the rest of you guys and myself, you measure your day by goals. You measure your day like a business operator. This is how much I need to make today. This is how much I need to make this week. This is how much I need to make this month in order to keep my business running. Now, my business is me. It's me. My business is also my household expenses because I'm a one-man band. So I've got to pay myself. I've got to be able to pay my bills, my personal expenses, that, rent, food, blah, blah, blah. But I've also got to be able to keep my business running. I've got to be able to make my lease payment. I've got to be able to make my insurance payment. I've got to be able to put gas in the car every day, et cetera, et cetera. And so I need to make goals for myself that are built around both of those numbers. My wage, how much I'm going to pay myself, meaning What does it cost to keep my family running, pay my bills, all that stuff, plus business expenses. And once I know what that number is monthly, then I can divide it by 52 weeks and by 7 days, and then I can get a real good head on my shoulders sense of what it is I want to make. And then if you're like me, you want to pump that number up by about 10 to 15%. Any low double-digit percentage, 10, 12, 15%. But you want to inflate that target a little bit. You don't want to just shoot for bare minimum. You want to always shoot for the sky. So, that's where I came up with $200 a day. If I drive 6 days a week, which is typically what I drive, typically, I want to do $1,200 a week. 6 days, $1,200, $200, blah, blah, blah. If I want to make more, then I set my goal higher daily. If I want to make $1,500 a week, then I got to divide 15 by 6, and so on and so forth. You get the math. It's easy. It's easy. What does it cost you to run your household expenses plus your business? And then there you back into it from there. My cost of living is not ridiculous. I'm not living in a mansion. But I want to be comfortable. I want to pay my bills, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you guys have to measure your own expenses. Now, if you've got 2 jobs, some of the guys that, and gals that I drive with, that I talk to regularly, they have a day job, and then they have, Uber or Lyft as their part-time gig. And that's a different equation. You still have your business expenses, what money you spend to keep your ride-sharing business running, but then you still want to also have personal goals for how much you want to make. Now, they may be smaller. If you're driving 4 hours instead of 10, your number's going to be scaled back. Maybe your goal is just to pay your car payment, or maybe your goal is to pay your car payment plus insurance. Whatever those numbers that you set for yourself are, that's fine. But you still need to have goals, and you still need to measure them. And you want them to be SMART goals. Anybody that's worked in the professional world knows what a SMART goal is. Sustainable, measurable, accurate, realistic, and timely. And attainable or accurate. Sometimes I see people use accurate. Sometimes I see people use attainable. But, sustainable goals are goals that you can repeat. They're not flash in the pan, one-time goals. Measurable. What is the goal and how much is it? Is it a quantifiable number? Attainable. Is it realistic or is it a joke? If it's realistic, it's something you can actually pull off. If it's a joke, I want to do $1 million in ride-sharing money in one day. Well, that's impossible. Realistic is kind of the same thing as attainable. Is it a goal that you can actually do? And then timely. How much time are you going to give yourself to get this goal? Is it a daily goal? I'm going to give myself Tuesday to get that goal of $200, or I'm going to give myself 7 days to get $1,200. What measurement of time are you going to compare against your target number? So, SMART goals, guys. If you Google it, you'll get a bunch of different interpretations of those kind of acronym letters. But, really it's a goal that you actually have a chance of achieving. Not easy, not a layup, but a goal that is not impossible. And you can break it down into its component pieces so you know what you have to do and how you have to do it. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Tonight was kind of a metaphysical talk about goals and business strategies and financials. Kind of rambled. It's okay. Sometimes that happens at 2 in the morning. And I will be back on the road tomorrow, guys. See you guys. Get some sleep. Bye.